Chapter 2. Awakening.
Voices in my head. My body felt sore as if I had been sleeping on a bed of nails. The pain was a rude awakening from the world of my unconsciousness. Then I opened my eyes and blinked. My heart skipped a beat. My room was gone. I sat up from the hard, jagged ground and saw 3 strangers staring straight at me, their faces a mixture of curiosity and surprise. My first reaction was to jump up and crawl away from them as if they were ghosts coming for my soul.
"Easy, boy, easy,"
the bulky one said. His body language invited me to stay calm, but that was not going to happen anytime soon.
"Where am I? What's going on? Who are you?"
I was too stunned to take in anything. My head was spinning. The darkness of the place unsettled me, and I could feel a cold dampness creeping into my bones.
"Don't you recognize us?"
the girl said.
"We were together, just a few hours ago. I think—"
She didn't sound convinced. I could feel my heart beating at full speed. Nothing made sense, so I tried to focus my mind and search my memory. She was quite petite. She had shiny black hair, which she wore in a cute bob just above her neck. Her skin was pale, and the delicate features of her pretty face made her appear almost like a little girl. The stocky one looked foreign, no doubt. His accent gave him away. He had a large, almost albino blonde moustache that framed both sides of his mouth down to his chin. He had hard features and a clean-shaven head. His appearance was truly intimidating. The other man had a delicate, beardless, almost feminine face. His long brown hair was an unusual creamy color. He was dressed in black. They were all in their 20s. And they were right. Very right. I knew them. I had been with them a couple of hours ago.
"You are—"
I was understandably slow to react.
"We are Insomnium,
The girl revealed.
Nyoda, Asahel, and Odin. Or, well, as you know us, Claudia, Alexis, and Hansi."
My brain began to process all this. My memories came back.
"You played at Valhalla last night.
I remembered.
I was at your gig and—"
I noticed Claudia smiling.
"That's right, kid,"
Alex added.
"We have friends in common. We all went for a drink after the gig."
"I didn't stay with you long, I'm afraid."
I admitted, putting my hand to my forehead. My head was killing me.
"So, where am I?"
I looked around, taking in the cold, dark, and unfamiliar surroundings. An unsettling feeling swept through me.
"That's what we'd all like to know,"
I heard one of them say. The huge cave seemed to have swallowed us up. I remained too confused to make sense of what was happening.
How did I get here?"
Hansi came closer and held out his arm to help me up. Those biceps could lift a horse. My lightweight frame was clearly no problem for him.
"Truth be told, boy,"
he said as he reached out to me.
"we thought you could help us answer that question."
As we shared our experiences, nothing made sense, and I was still too dazed to think clearly.
"So, that's all you remember?"
Alex sounded disappointed by my version of events,
"There's not much more to add.
I assured him.
I remember leaving early. I was having a great time, but I'd promised my parents that I wouldn't be late. When I got back, I had something to eat and went to bed. That was it. Until now."
I looked around once more. The more I thought about it, the less sense it made. And I wasn't the only one who felt this way.
"He's also dressed in the same clothes he wore to the show. I doubt he slept dressed like that,"
Claudia remarked. I looked at myself and saw that she was right. I was relieved that I wasn't in my old pajamas.
"But what does that mean?"
I asked.
"We don't know yet,"
Alex admitted, slightly deflated.
"We're looking for something that connects us all, something that explains why we've all ended up in this situation. In this place.
He added, gesturing around.
We're all wearing the same clothes from earlier in the afternoon, and we were all together after the gig.
Claudia said.
Not the other guy.
Alex interrupted, breaking her logic.
What other guy?
I asked. Claudia answered my question.
There's this other guy, I think you know him.
Hansi finally set me straight.
Remember when I came out to say hello at the door? The guys that wanted to make trouble?
How could I not remember? I thought we were going to get into a fight.
Well, one of them is over there. We haven't talked to him yet, but going from the state he's in, I don't think he knows we're here.
In the state he's in?
I didn't like the idea of being trapped in a place like this with one of those troublemakers. However, Hansi's involvement in the whole thing offered some reassurance. He inspired respect and gave me a sense of security.
We should talk to him.
Are you sure, Hansi?
Hansi rubbed his chin as he pondered the question.
Whoever he is, he's in this mess too,
he concluded. Claudia looked around her nervously. Despite the immense size of the cavern, she felt as if the walls and ceiling were starting to close in on her.
I'm feeling a bit cramped in here,
she said as she rubbed her arms again for warmth. The dampness in the air was becoming increasingly oppressive. We would have to find a way to warm up soon.
You said you saw a lot of the cave,
she asked Hansi.
Does it have an exit?
Hansi gave his friend a worried look.
That's the worst part of it all,
her burly friend admitted.
There is no way out, at least none that I have seen.
Claudia buried her face in her hands.
This is a nightmare, a really bad one.
Have you explored the whole cave?
Alex looked worried.
Not at all,
the giant said. Somehow that reassured Alex.
I tried to avoid getting too close to that other guy. Maybe that side of the cave leads to an exit.
Alex stood up with determination.
Whatever happens, it seems our paths are destined to cross. No more waiting. Let's go talk to him now.
Nobody liked the idea of going back to the youth with the spiky hair, but Alex was right. Talking to him, or at least walking past him, felt inevitable. But no one was quite sure how he would react to our presence. He was still there, in the same position as before, with a lost expression on his face, just as they had described. He looked like someone struggling to process what had just happened. Bewildered, confused, probably trying to wake up from what felt like a hallucinatory nightmare. That's how we all felt.
I'll go closer and
Hansi suggested.
I'm used to dealing with people like him, although I can't guarantee it will go down well.
This sentence seemed to predict the future. Hansi tried to warn the youth of his presence before he approached him. But the poor guy was so out of it that he didn't seem to notice the bald giant until he was only a few feet away. When he did, the youth jumped to his feet and backed away from Hansi as if he had never seen another human being before.
Easy, easy, man, it's okay, I'll stay here,
Hansi assured him, staying where he was. Hansi raised his hands in sign of appeasement as the spiky-haired youth shouted at him to stay away. He was very upset, and the close presence of Hansi's hulking frame only seemed to agitate him further. Finding himself in the presence of another person only seemed to unleash his paranoia, and it got worse when he noticed the rest of us in the gloom of the cave.
Hey, who else is there?
Hansi signaled for us to come out of hiding.
Easy, mate. They're my friends. They're fine.
Hansi tried to reassure him, but it didn't seem to make any difference.
You'll see them soon enough and realize you have nothing to fear.
Stay right there, man.
The youth screamed hysterically as Hansi took a few more steps towards him. In an unexpected move, the youth reached behind his back and pulled out a small switchblade, opening it with the flick of his wrist. He started waving it at us.
I swear I'll stab you if you move. Not a step, you hear me? Who the hell are you? What the hell do you want?
The sight of that blade put a lump in our throats. We all froze. Hansi tensed.
All right, take it easy, mate.
His eyes were fixed on the blade in the guy's jittery hands.
Listen, we're here just like you. We know as little as you do. You have nothing to fear from us, okay? So put that shit away. You don't need it.
Bullshit,
said the youth, taking a few steps forward to intimidate us, before quickly retreating again.
Anybody comes near me, I'll cut 'em up, all right?
Whatever you say, man.
With a quick glance, Hansi warned us not to intervene.
What's your name, buddy? We just want to help. I'm Hansi. She's...
Hey, I really don't care.
He interrupted in an exasperated tone.
This is some shit, man. This is some real shit, right? Don't screw with me, man. That's not cool. That's not cool at all.
We noticed that the guy had started talking to himself.
What the hell is going on, man? What the hell is wrong with me? What the hell did you give me, Johnny?
He shouted, looking up at the hidden roofs of the cave. His voice came back in a wave of echoes that seemed to mock him.
This is your fault, you bastard. When I come down from this high, I swear I'm going to kill you. This is the crappiest trip of my whole damn life. I'll kill you, Johnny. I swear I'll bloody kill you for this shit.
His distorted words echoed back from the darkness. We watched him in his rage, not knowing what to do or how it would all end. Then he collapsed to the floor. He brought his hands to his face and began to whimper and curse some more. Only Hansi dared to answer.
I don't know what the hell you've taken, mate,
he said as the whimpering began to subside.
but I assure you it has nothing to do with what's happening to you. It's not a high or a bad trip or anything like that. Believe me.
The guy slowly turned to face the giant.
I'm real. So are these guys. And everything around you is real too. You'd better get used to it.
The youth looked at Hansi very intently, but there was no aggression anymore, just an air of defeat. Confusion haunted his eyes.
What are you saying, man?
His tone was almost pleading.
I was having a party, bro. I'm partying right now, man. A big blowout. That's what I'm talking about, you know. I just went to the bog, you know, to the bog, just to sit down a bit. I was getting woozy, you know, because of the crap that geezer gave us. Damn it. And this bad trip will cost that damn pill popper his life. I swear.
Hansi held his gaze for a few moments. If the youth wasn't tripping, his pupils told a different story. There was no point in trying to convince him of anything in that state.
Whatever you say, mate,
he finally said.
Stay here and just ride it out. We'll look around for a way out. Come find us when you feel better, okay?
The guy nodded, but we doubted he had actually listened to what Hansi had said. The giant gestured energetically for us to move forward and get past the crazed youth as quickly as possible. We obeyed, fearing that he'd have another violent outburst at any moment. But nothing happened. One by one, we passed him. He looked at us with a disturbed expression on his face, as if we were figments of his imagination. The last to pass was Hansi, who kept his eye on the hand holding the knife. We were all concerned and wanted to put as much distance as possible between us and the disorientated youth. As we walked away into the murky cave, only Claudia turned to look back at him.
Should we just leave him there?
She asked, turning back to us.
I'd rather he calms down first,
Alex said.
He's got a knife, sweetheart. I don't want to be around him when he goes off the deep end again.
Alex is right, Dia.
Her other bandmate tried to reassure her.
The guy is unstable right now. I'm not going to encourage him to come with us in this state. He's better off staying behind. He's not much help to us right now, and I'm not even sure he will be when he's sober.
Personally, I felt more comfortable the further away we got from him. The dim light of our surroundings gave us the unpleasant feeling that we were walking round in circles. Each stalagmite looked disturbingly like the one before and the one after. The chalky shapes seemed to go on forever, in the suffocating damp atmosphere that enveloped everything. It felt lifeless. Only the occasional sound of water droplets falling from the heights of the cavern broke the thick silence. We were about to give up when one of us shouted,
Over here, guys!
Alex's voice broke the group's silence.
I think I found the wall.
We reached it a few seconds later. The light was very dim in this part of the cave. Alex searched in the pockets of his trench coat and pulled out a cigarette lighter. After a few failed attempts, he managed to produce a small flame from it. The orange glow from the lighter allowed us to see where we were. The rough, uneven stone wall was riddled with pot marks and lumps of rock. It rose dozens of feet into the air as far as the eye could see.
We can't go any further.
Claudia said with confidence.
We've reached the end of the cave, at least in this direction.
Well, that's something,
Alex said.
Now we know that this damn cave ends somewhere.
Let's stay close to the wall and follow it all the way around,
Hansi suggested.
The section leading to the exit has to start somewhere.
We set off again. Thanks to the faint glow of Alex's lighter, we could follow the contour of the wall. We now had a point of reference that we didn't have before. Our steps quickened, and we were able to cover the distance along the side of the wall with increasing rapidity, giving us a rough idea of the dimensions and shape of the cavern. Soon Hansi's suspicions were confirmed to be correct.
It looks like it goes up.
We stopped at the beginning of what looked like a narrow passageway, winding its way through the dark and gloomy depths of the earth. As Hansi had observed, the path seemed to ascend slightly, possibly leading to the surface. A gentle breeze caressed our faces with refreshingly cool air.
Maybe it leads out,
Alex said.
Or maybe the air just comes through a crack in the rock.
His burly companion responded dryly.
Well, there's only one way to find out,
said Claudia, the first to move forward. The rest of us followed her with caution. Soon the tunnel became very steep, and we were forced to use the walls to assist in our ascent.
Be careful, the ground is very slippery,
Hansi warned us as he helped us up with his strong arms. I couldn't believe that the huge guy in front of me was none other than Odin, the drummer of Insomnium. He was also the doorman at Valhalla, the pub where they played regularly. It seemed unbelievable. There I was, with them. Insomnium was the local rock band, and they were relatively well known in the town. Their career was still only in its infancy, and their repertoire still included many covers of other, better-known bands. However, their own songs were pretty decent, and many predicted a bright future for the band, despite a brief crisis. Their bass player, Narael, his real name was Nathan, had recently left the band. Rumor had it that he had broken up with Nyode. Apparently, this had split the band. The truth is that Golgotha, a much more popular death metal band, had asked him to join them. Nyode, Claudia was her real name, was their lead singer. Not only did she look great on stage, but she also had an amazing voice. Asahel, Alex in real life, was a producer and multi-instrumentalist who played lead guitar during their live shows. It was rumored that Insomnium were about to give up after Narael's departure. So, when it was announced that they were doing a gig for friends at Valhalla, I just had to go. I have a mate who bragged about knowing Asahel from his comic shop. He gave me a ticket and promised to introduce me to the band after the show. It was a great gig. Despite having a temporary bass player, they played better than ever. I think they wanted to silence the rumors. The icing on the cake for me that night was the time backstage. I would have been content with a quick hello, perhaps some small talk and little else. They were like celebrities to me. But Asahel. Alex insisted on hanging out, and we ended up having a drink in the pub. We had a really good time. I remember thinking how great it would be to get to know them better. Everybody wants to be friends with a rock band. Although they were just starting out, they already had a loyal fan base, including me, of course. I was afraid of being seen as a gushing groupie, so I said very little when we hung out. In my head, I fantasized that this could be the beginning of an interesting friendship. I hated having to say goodbye to them so soon after meeting them, especially when the evening seemed to have just begun. Because of my shyness, I barely exchanged more than a few words with them. As an impressionable adolescent, I totally idolized them. In my mind, I longed for new opportunities to meet them and develop a deeper connection. Such naive hopes and fantasies dominated my thoughts when I returned home. I went to bed wanting to be part of their world and join their fascinating circle of friends. And then I woke up in the middle of a cave with only the members of Insomnium for company. It was totally mad. The corridor twisted and turned as it ascended through the bowels of the earth. The journey seemed never-ending, with no light other than that of Alex's stubborn lighter, barely illuminating our footsteps. Our slow but steady progress through the tunnel was physically and emotionally exhausting.
We all met each other at some point during the afternoon.
Claudia continued, brooding on the subject.
Not that idiot.
Alex reminded her as he helped her over an obstruction on the path.
Well, he was there, Hansi saw him, and so did you, right?
She looked for my confirmation. I nodded firmly.
There has to be something that connects us all.
But Alex disagreed.
We were with a lot of other people too, Claudia,
he said, struggling to make sense of it all.
Why him and not Dimitri, or any of the other people who joined us for beers?
He added, looking at me.
They were with us last night too. Why not anyone else who came to the gig? Besides, we were all in different places at different times when whatever happened to us happened. The whole thing makes no sense, dear. I'm not sure it's worth thinking about.
But,
she insisted,
there must be a connection.
Guys,
the drummer's loud voice interrupted the conversation.
there's light at the end of the tunnel.
We all turned to face him at once. His words were not a metaphor. There seemed to be a point of light at the end of the narrow passageway. We exchanged excited glances. Perhaps this light would provide salvation from the chaotic world of shadows and uncertainty we found ourselves in.
Terrific,
She said.
It could be the way out. What are we waiting for?
With renewed enthusiasm, we hurried on, forgetting the conversation we had just had. Perhaps the end of the mystery was only a few steps away. The corridor, which had become frighteningly narrow, began to widen as we approached the source of the light. With each step it grew and widened like an eye filled with wonder. Soon we realized it was indeed the mouth of the cave.
It's the exit, it's the way out,
Claudia said excitedly. The wide entrance of the cave let in the daylight. It poured into the surrounding areas with a dull ochre hue. The place seemed much larger than we had imagined. The warmth of the air was overwhelming. Instinctively, we slowed our pace, almost unconsciously celebrating our victory, enjoying a well-deserved reward. Our spirits were soothed, and the sense of claustrophobia that had plagued us began to dissipate as we walked towards freedom. However, from the nagging, "How do we get out of here?" we had now moved on to, "Where are we?"
Where on earth are we?
It may seem obvious, but I think what Claudia meant was, where in the world could such a place exist? It was clear that something inexplicable had happened to us. Nobody would drag 5 young people out of their beds and leave them in a cave, just for fun. Even if that twisted idea has been exploited ad infinitum in horror films. I can only imagine how many far-fetched hypotheses were running through our minds at the time. The most coherent thought was to believe in some kind of unexplained phenomenon. We hear about strange phenomena all the time. People walking peacefully through their hometown and suddenly finding themselves walking on the Chinese wall. Why shouldn't that happen to us? Reality soon came crashing down on us with all its weight. The uncertainty of not knowing where we were or how we had got there had plunged us into a state of agonizing fear. But an answer was there, right in front of us. It glowed brightly in the reddish afternoon sky. Jubilant, almost defiant above our heads. It was an answer that did not give us the information we needed. It didn't tell us how we got into this situation. It didn't even give us the slightest clue as to where we were, but it didn't matter, because it made it absolutely clear, beyond a shadow of a doubt, where we were not. Here was our answer. There it was, the light that revealed all. Gone were the shadows that clouded our thoughts in the cave. Perhaps the saying is true, and ignorance is bliss. We all stared at the sky above the horizon, eyes fixed on the sunset. No one said a word, but we all saw it. You couldn't miss it. We walked on, but nothing guided our steps. Our feet dragged us forward, as we were drawn to, and bewitched by, that majestic vision on the horizon.
Oh my God, it can't be true.
That expression summed it up perfectly.
This must be a dream.
But we had come too far to stick to that theory. It was too late for that, I'm afraid. The huge mouth of the cave led us out into the barren world outside. The grandiose view before us was chilling. A vast valley of stone, as red as the sands of Mars, stretched beneath our feet and as far as the eye could see. The landscape was desolate. Perhaps it was the barrenness of the view and the indecipherable beauty of the desert that made it so breathtaking. From there, from the heights of a steep crevice where the mouth of the cave opened, the scenery was incredible. But it was not this impressive panorama that had plunged us into a state of absolute silence. The answer lay higher up, in the sky. I never thought I would say this. In front of us, on the horizon, 2 impressive twin suns offered us their light on that unexpected evening. A white sun and a red one next to it. A massive fiery white giant glowed proudly before our astonished eyes. A little higher up, next to this huge ball, another star was visible. It was much smaller, but of such an intense, igneous red that it was overwhelming. It hovered close to the yellow giant. We stood there, frozen to the spot, mesmerized by the astonishing yet unbelievable sight before us. I firmly believe that there is no pen or literary skill with the wit or talent required to fully describe what goes through one's mind at a time like this. Quite simply, there are moments, sensations, and feelings that are beyond words. No matter how I try to describe them, no one could adequately express our thoughts and feelings from that moment. It was there, and it was real. There is no second sun. Your mind struggles to rationalize it, but your eyes tell you otherwise. In this state of astonishment, we were unaware that someone else was standing behind us. He entered the scene with a similarly bewildered expression on his face. It was the youth with the spiky hair. He had followed our footsteps, I suppose, or perhaps the faint glow of our lighter. He arrived stunned, just like the rest of us. His eyes were not prepared for this collision with reality. It felt unreal to all of us. Claudia quickly brought her hands to her chest. She struggled to breathe. She took a few steps back, gasping for air as she desperately tried to fill her lungs. Her frantic reaction took us all by surprise.
Dear, what's wrong? Are you all right?
As Alex approached her, Claudia backed away from him with a sudden movement. She took a few unmeasured steps backwards, one hand on her chest and the other on her forehead. For a couple of seconds, we feared the worst. Suddenly, she turned and looked at us with her deep, dark eyes. Her face said it all. It wasn't just fear.
For God's sake, where are we? Where are we? Somebody say something.
Her words hit us like a sledgehammer. Our world fell apart. I looked at the huge red sun, the desolate horizon, and felt the chill of the wind for the first time. We were alone, isolated and lost.
Let's calm down.
Alex tried to regain his composure, to assert himself and sound rational.
There must be an explanation for all this. A logical explanation.
Really? What explanation, Alex?
Hansi asked. Alex just stood there in silence, unable to come up with an answer. There were none. There was no logical explanation.
Holy shit! Wow! What the hell is that?
The spiky-haired youth literally fell on his backside. That's when we noticed him. He sat there, his eyes fixed on the fascinating and yet deeply disturbing sight in front of us.
If I'm tripping, when I tell my buddies, they're not going to believe me. They're not going to believe me at all.